Meet Lucas. He works in a public library. He's currently engaged in a community science project related to a local historical event. He and his team have discovered much interesting information and digitized many valuable resources. They've published some of the material in an online repository to make it available to other researchers interested in local history. This is in line with the so called FAIR principles. Research data must be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Now, with the digitized material, Lucas and his colleagues are about to set up a small digital collection. They plan to publish it online and share it with their community, a wider public, and whomever might be interested. Sharing data means publishing it online in an open, standardized, machine readable format and under an open license. When data is shared, it becomes available to multiple users, not only people, but also non human users, for example, web crawlers. They can reuse this data, that is, use it again, whether for the same or different purpose. In this session, we'll discuss implications of data sharing. We'll talk about policies and regulations on data sharing and reuse. We'll look into possible restrictions, and we'll see how data can be shared at different levels of openness. So let's get started. Data sharing has many benefits. In Lucas's town, the main public transport company shares data gathered or produced by its vehicles. The data is then used by a mobile app that gives real time information about the routes and schedules of buses and trams. It really improves the quality of the public transport service. Lucas hopes that digitized cultural heritage resources and their metadata could be reused in a similar way, for example, in educational apps, tourist guide apps, or in other sectors of creative industries such as gaming or design. Sharing can promote the importance of cultural institutions, but that's not the only advantage. It can also facilitate collaboration within the cultural sector and reduce workload. For example, in some cases, when several cultural institutions hold copies of the same resource, they could simply link to or import the existing data provided by another institution. But Lucas is still not completely sure what should be made openly available and what should not. Then he hears about a document called Open Data Directive, which is a common legal framework for public sector information in the European Union. According to this directive, all public sector information that can be accessed under national access to information rules should also be open by default, that is, freely available for reuse. This includes documents and data held by publicly funded libraries, archives, and museums. For example, their catalogs and collection management records, digitized items, and statistical data. This sounds great, but sharing of public sector data still faces some challenges. Not all data held by public institutions is public good. Some items, or even whole databases, may be protected by third party intellectual property rights. Another challenge is the fact that public LAM institutions hold vast amount of personal data, for example about creators, donors, users, or visitors. This data is protected under General Data Protection Regulation or GDPR. Furthermore, in the cultural sector, there are many private organizations as well, and they may be reluctant to share what they consider to be confidential data. This is understandable because opening carries along many risks. It can easily lead to information system security threats, data breaches, or unethical use of personal data, for example, in political campaigns. So it is very important to balance benefits of data sharing against risks. Lucas finds out about another European legislative proposal called Data Governance Act. It provides guidance for both private and public organizations about how to share their data while at the same time protecting sensitive and confidential information. You can find more info at the link below. Lucas understands that data sharing is impossible without data ethics, that is, moral obligations and responsibilities related to data collecting and disseminating. On the practical side, he understands that sharing of digital items and data needs to be accompanied by privacy policies and access policies, as well as rights statements, including in metadata. Now Lucas knows a lot about what can be shared and under what conditions. What he'd like to know next is how to share data. He learns about a scheme called 5-Star Open Data Model. It is a rating system that defines 5 levels of data openness. It's been developed in 2010 by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, one of the founders of the web. As shown here, in the 5-star model, each subsequent data format is more open, more reusable, and therefore gets a higher score. 1-star data is any data file that's been published online under an open license in any format. This includes digital cultural heritage objects in formats such as JPEG or PDF. Remember the FAIR principles. Data published on the web is findable. Anyone who is interested can find it and use it. Data with 2 stars is structured data, for example, data in spreadsheets. Cultural institutions' metadata is mostly stored as structured data, usually in domain-specific formats such as MARC, EAD, or Lido. Structured data is more accessible than 1-star data because it is more easily processed by computers, for example, visualized or exported to another format. 3-star data is structured data published in an open format. For example, data in Excel spreadsheet will have 2 stars, but data in CSV will have 3 stars, because Excel is a proprietary format and CSV is not. Data in an open format is generally more interoperable because it doesn't require a proprietary software to open it and read it. 4-star data is data identified by a Uniform Resource Identifier or URI. It is a uniform machine-readable identifier assigned to a piece of data. URIs are used in so-called RDF or linked data formats such as ntriples, Turtle, JSON-LD, or RDF XML. These formats make data linkable to other data and therefore more reusable. And finally, the highest score is assigned to data that has been linked to other data sets. Now Lucas would like to learn more about linked data. So join us in our advanced level sessions to find out how linked data is used in the GLAM sector. In this session, we have touched some important questions related to data sharing and reuse. We've talked about Open Data Directive and Data Governance Act. We've talked about data ethics. We've outlined the benefits but also possible restrictions and risks of data sharing and presented different levels of data openness. Thank you for watching and enjoy the upcoming sessions.